when we're under pressure emotionally, if we don't have the right support networks, sometimes that can come out in our behaviour towards others. And there's a bit of a fear around addressing this, but again, from a place of compassion and empathy. I think courage is a really interesting word for me, as is confidence. And I feel like they're mixed up a little bit. And I feel like so many people within organisations are waiting to feel confident enough before doing the thing that they need to do. Whereas if you flip it around and reframe it and focus on courage to do the thing with a view that it might not be perfect, but you're going to give it a try anyway. And then you learn from that experience, then go do it again, but do it better. So for me, courage is really, really important because it encourages people to do what they need to do, but with a view of learning from it, rather than going from a place of confidence where there's no expectation to learn. That, and the fact that courage is really contagious, right? You know, if you see somebody doing something that they don't know how to do, or something that's a bit scary, and they're being courageous, they're being brave, it inspires people to think, you know what, maybe I could do the same thing. Whereas if you see somebody doing something from a position of confidence, then the narratives are usually around, or what I'm hearing anyway, are around, oh, well, you know, I can't do that, or I don't have the skills to do that, or I don't have enough experience to do that. So for me, if organisations promote courage, then I believe that they can get a lot more from their teams. And I've witnessed this firsthand myself from the teams that I've worked with and the people that I've spoken to as well. It's a really interesting topic around supporting other women and helping them in their careers and in leadership roles and also in business. And I kind of wish that people would stop focusing on the women element of it and just start focusing on, like, what do we need to do to make things more inclusive and give more opportunities to people. That being said, I've worked across so many male-dominated industries. A lot of women that I speak to, especially in junior roles, have a fear of putting themselves forward, have a fear of asking questions in case they're wrong, have a fear of consequence, basically, and that consequence could be wide ranging. So I think for me, it's about helping lift up people and give them the opportunities to have what I'd call compassionate conversations, so that they can address some of the challenges that, let's face it, we all experience, but with compassion and empathy. Because for me, I don't believe that a lot of the, you know, casual everyday sexism that we experience is coming from a place like a negative place. I believe that it's just coming from a place of ignorance. And if we address it with compassion and empathy, then we can solve the real problem. That, and I'm really keen to start talking about some of the deeper conversations that I believe that we need to have, because I find that there's a lot of women in conversations that are taking place that just scratch the surface of what's actually going on instead of diving in deeper. And one of those is, like, how do we support women, not just as they rise through the ranks and get promoted and get these opportunities, but how do we support women when they're at the top? Because especially in business and in leadership roles, it can be a very lonely place. You're dealing with a lot of emotional pressures, both at home and also at work. And I think we're all aware that when we're under pressure emotionally, if we don't have the right support networks, sometimes that can come out in our behaviour towards others. And there's a bit of a fear around addressing this, but again, from a place of compassion and empathy, by saying, right, okay, how can I support you, rather than trying to tear people down. You know, I see it all the time that, you know, women at the top, people are just looking for an excuse to say, all right, well, that's why they're behaving in a certain way, and trying to belittle them in some ways. Whereas I think for me, it's not just helping women rise up, it's helping women who are at the top help other women rise up. So be supportive instead of think that they need to, you know, put women through what they went through. And then also, you know, how can they recognise their own behaviours? Because I've got an incredibly supportive network, and from my own experiences, they will support me when things do get overwhelming, or if the emotional burden of leadership and business gets a bit too much, to sort of force me into having rest, force me into sort of addressing some of the things that are going on for me personally, rather than that then spilling over and affecting other people. that is a great question, because I think for me last year I accepted a role as managing director for a business. I went from essentially 6.5 years of me, myself and I to a team, and lots of challenges that kind of came within that. So I think for me it's all about my network. I have an incredible network of people around me, and friends that I can ring up and say, am I being unreasonable here, or am I going mad here? Like, you know, what's going on? Because sometimes it's that like self-doubt that we all kind of want to get rid of, and we wish we didn't experience imposter syndrome. We wish we didn't experience self-doubt. But the fact of the matter is that I think we're always going to experience it. It's all about how we manage those things. And I think for me, it's that like people and environment are really important. So, you know, actually, like I have a list of friends that I can call on for different things. So if I'm having challenges with an employee, and, you know, I had a lot of those last year, especially around mental health, is that, you know, I've got somebody that I can talk problems through, because I think a problem discussed is a problem solved in a much quicker way. And also, again, it's like bringing in those perspectives that you might not have considered in that situation. So yeah, that's a big one for me, the people, the environment as well. So I have to force myself into like a kind of, I say it's like a quarterly retreat. So every quarter I sort of say, right, I'm going to take either a long weekend or an extra long weekend, and then just go walking in the hills, sort of stay at a hotel, just get out of the normal sort of situation of what I'm doing, because that, again, for me, the mountains and the hills are the best way that I can get an external perspective. So if I ever feel like I'm getting a bit sort of short-tempered with people, or if I feel like I'm, you know, getting a bit too stressed, or I'm focusing too much on the detail, then, you know, force myself to get out, take a day off, or ring somebody. It's a really good question, because it's the subject of a lot of my keynote talks. And even if it's not the subject of a keynote talk, I do tend to weave it in, because it's really important. I think the first one is to acknowledge and accept that as leaders, as human beings, you know, we're all going to fear failure. We're all going to fear judgment, because at the end of the day, that's what makes us human. You know, like years and years ago, like failure could mean sudden death, and judgment could mean that we get excluded from the tribe that we're part of. And belonging is really, really important as well. So instead of using energy thinking, oh, I need to stop feeling like this, use your energy to think, right, okay, well, actually, this is just normal. This is all part of it. And I think it's slightly easier because I have an engineering background. And in the engineering world, failure is a good thing. Yeah, if you're trying to engineer a new solution, or if you're coming up with a new product, or if you're doing anything, then failure is all part of the process. You actually want to fail fast so you can develop what you're developing quicker, because then you know what works and what doesn't work. I think it's the perfectionism that's the real challenge, because perfectionism is the thing that tends to stop people putting things out into the world. Whereas actually, if you just think, right, how can I get it to a point where, and this is an important distinction, because I work in aviation, and, you know, you can't fly a plane that's like, oh, I'm 80% sure that this plane's not going to crash. Like, that's not what it's about. It's about, like, you know, choosing the environment that you're in, and going, you know, if it's a piece of content because you want to build up your personal brand, you know, the consequences of it not working, it's not life and death. Nobody's going to die. And also, not everybody's going to see it. But if you don't put it out there, you've got nothing to learn from. So for me, the advice is, like, reframe failure as a good thing, reframe failure as part of the process, as a way of learning, because failure, in my mind anyway, it's only failure if you don't learn anything from it. The other part is around sort of judgments and people perceiving you in a different way. And I think this is something that I've really, really struggled with. And actually learning how to speak in public has helped me massively with this, because at the end of the day, you know, not everybody is going to like you. And it's back onto that self-awareness piece. It's like, you don't like everybody else, so how can you expect everybody to like you? So it's focusing on the people that you actually respect and care about, but also don't let that stop you, because at the end of the day, everybody judges it's all part and parcel of, again, being human. We can't help it. More often than not, it's totally, subconscious. So again, accept that it is part of the process, but don't let that stop you, but just learn from every situation, learn from every experience, because then it's just going to keep getting better and better. The key thing I want people to take away from one of my talks is that instead of spending energy thinking and feeling that they need to be more confident, or they need to get rid of imposter syndrome, or they need to get rid of issues around self-belief and things, put that energy into making courageous steps. I always talk about courage in motion, because confidence comes from action, but the action comes from courage. So it's all about taking that first step, or also keep going and keep learning. And then the other thing as well, I know it was one thing to take away, but when you do implement courage in motion, you are courageous. Sometimes if you're not doing it for yourself, just think that actually it will inspire other people to do things as well. So sometimes we don't do the thing because we're like, oh, well, either, we're not that important, or our goals aren't that important. So a little reframe can sometimes be useful to say, right, well, actually, if I do it, then other people are going to see me do it. And that's really inspiring. And then they're going to do it. And then it's going to have an amazing ripple effect.